So have the dire wolves, the apex predators from 10,000 years ago, really come back? Yes. Recently, Colossal Biosciences, the company working on bringing back the mammoth, the dodo, and the thylacine, has claimed that the world's first extinct animal, the dire wolf, has been de-extincted. But how did this happen? And how true is this claim? We will find out in this video. Well, since around 1850, fossils of a very large canine have been discovered in modern-day North America. The canine family includes dog-like animals, meaning different breeds like wolves and dholes are part of it. Eventually, in 1858, an American paleontologist described this canine and named it Canis dirus, meaning dire wolf, thus placing it under the wolf genus Canis. Today, all the modern animal species you see under the Canis genus, of course including the gray wolf and the domestic dog, which descends from gray wolves, are part of the same family. This made dire wolves the closest relatives to gray wolves and domestic dogs. The relationship is as close as between humans and Neanderthals, or between lions and tigers. Well, after 1858, it was understood that dire wolves were a breed of wolves. They also held the record for being the largest wolves ever. Compared to the modern-day largest gray wolves, dire wolves were about 25% bigger. Because of this size advantage, during the Ice Ages, dire wolves could easily hunt the largest bison latifrons, the famous woolly mammoths, and giant ground sloths using their deadly jaws. But we know that when the Ice Ages started to warm up and human hunting activity drastically increased in North America, many giant animals went extinct. Thus, due to the shortage of prey, dire wolves became extinct about 10,000 years ago. However, the gray wolves that coexisted with them are still alive today because they preyed on smaller animals. Well, friends, what I'm about to tell you about dire wolves might just blow your mind. Yes, 150 years after the discovery of dire wolves, a modern genetics study in 2021 revealed the dire wolf was not actually a wolf. They belong to a completely different breed of canines, which was removed from the Canis genus and placed into a new genus called Enoceon. This study also revealed that dire wolves and gray wolves last shared a common ancestor around 5.7 million years ago. This means that these two animals are as distantly related as humans are to chimpanzees, or lions are to cheetahs. Well, from this you can also guess that when the genus changes, two animals become so genetically different that they can no longer even produce a sterile offspring together. So then the question arises, if in today's time there are no living relatives of dire wolves left, then how did Colossal Biosciences manage to de-extinct dire wolves by inserting their DNA into something? Look, what Colossal Biosciences did first was select a gray wolf. Using CRISPR technology, the advanced method of gene editing, they edited only 14 genes out of about 2,000 genes inside a single cell of the gray wolf. Then, this edited cell was inserted into an egg cell of a surrogate dog. From the fusion of these two cells, a hybrid cell was created, which was placed inside the uterus of the surrogate dog. From this process, two male pups named Romulus and Remus were born, and later, one female pup named Khaleesi. The company then claimed that these three animals are the de-extinct dire wolves. In fact, throughout this entire process, no actual dire wolf material was ever used. Another important point to note is that if there are an estimated 20,000 genes in the gray wolf and the dire wolf, there is a massive difference of about 2,500 to 3,000 genes between them. Yet, to create these three wolves, Colossal Biosciences edited only 14 genes, that too inspired merely by the dire wolf size and fur genes, and did not insert any direct ancient dire wolf DNA into them. Therefore, calling these three genetically engineered gray wolves dire wolves is just like increasing a few hairs on a human's body through gene editing and then calling them a Neanderthal. By editing those genes, creating a fully hairy human and then calling it a chimpanzee, or editing a jaguar's genes to make its teeth bigger, and then claiming that a prehistoric smilodon, saber-toothed cat, has returned to the world. This is the kind of thing happening here. And personally, I believe that Colossal Biosciences has made more of an effort to create the fictional dire wolves from Game of Thrones rather than trying to recreate the real dire wolves. Because most people know about dire wolves only through that series. And this claim becomes even stronger when we find out that real dire wolves were not actually white in color, but rather their true color was reddish-brown. Despite knowing this, the company mostly made gene edits specifically for white color fur mutations. And you can see the proof of this with your own eyes by looking at the names of the edited genes and the purpose behind editing them. That's why, somewhere, this whole thing is also about attracting attention and securing funding. Anyway, friends, listen to this reality once and for all. Every animal evolves through millions of years of natural selection, and recreating that entire process through human intervention is nearly impossible. That's why I always say, prehistoric animals that went extinct thousands of years ago and whose only distant relatives survive today cannot truly be brought back. However, an animal similar to that extinct animal can be created using CRISPR through its distant relatives, but it would hardly fit into nature's existing ecological niches. Still, in the future, we might see something like extinct zoos featuring these hybrid de-extinct animals. As for recently extinct animals whose closest relatives are still alive, yes, they can be fully de-extincted through cloning. And in fact, the world's first successful de-extinction was achieved with an animal called the Pyrenean ibex, because we had intact DNA of that extinct animal, and there were goats, members of the same genus, available for surrogacy. However, this animal died 7 minutes after being de-extincted in 2003 due to a lung defect. Because of this, the Pyrenean ibex became the only animal in the world to have gone extinct twice. How was this video? Tell us in comments. Like and share. Also, do you know any other story like Direwolf,